Okay, since the last video, I did make an adjustment here on the speed at which the keyboard repeats. So this is a keyboard as a HID compliant device, since we've started talking about those in this playlist. And whenever we push a button on the keyboard, it adds to the queue once, and that way the key is not continually spammed for whatever clock rate the CPU is going at. So each click of the key only adds it to a queue once, and this set repeat overrides that. And I adjusted the delays a little until I found one where it looked like it was going the same speed, which took a little uh, bit of trial and error to find because we set the game engine to run at 60 frames per second here, which is 16 or 17 milliseconds each frame. 16.6666 repeating sixes on milliseconds. But for some reason, to match that with this method, I had to double the number of milliseconds. I haven't looked into it to know exactly why, but that seems consistent with things I've found before. To match for the keyboard presses to match things that happen purely on the clock, this needs to be about twice the number of milliseconds. But I just used some trial and error to find that. Just adjusted the speed till it looked about the same with the keyboard as it does with the controller. And I just mentioned the HID compliant device again. I wanted to talk briefly about something. I've started mentioning that, yet I still seem to be putting a lot of focus on the just regular manually coded custom thing here. And it's been a couple videos, so I thought I'd throw in a reminder that my original purpose for this controller, my current need, the reason I'm making it, is to replace multiple choice quizzes in my classes with educational video games. And I mostly teach programming courses, so having a reprogrammable a reprogrammable controller seems like it would make a very good lab day in one of my classes. So that's why I'm still focused on this a lot, because this is a project for students in my classes, which are programming classes. So being able to reprogram the controller seems like it'd be good for the classes. That's why I'm still focused a lot on this. But I had to order 5 PCBs, so I'll probably put together a different one and put together a different one to test all the HID compliant code. There's a lot of stuff to that, but that's still to come. So now that our character moves, the next thing was to throw a fireball so we can get some sort of a game going. So I'll go over that real quick. Oh, looks like I added the fireball sprite in. Actually, I forgot to delete it on the first take of this video. So obviously the first thing we'll need is the fireball sprite, which we saw before, PyGame.image.load. Bring that in to get the sprite. And then we can, somewhere down here, in this version, just some functions. But as the game gets more complicated, it becomes more and more important to have the class type structure to put our game objects together. But again, just like we saw before, all we'll do is call the blip method on the screen. And I've looked that up since the last time I mentioned it. That stands for block transfer. I guess it gets a little bit into the background of how PyGame works, but every object we have is considered a surface. And block transfer is a way that we can quickly transfer one surface onto another surface very rapidly. So that's what we use to put the sprites in front of the background, basically. Very rapidly transfer the entire sprite as one block onto the other surface. So we'll just pass in some XY coordinates and then throw it up at those coordinates. And remember, in PyGame, pretty much every time we have more than one number, it needs to be as a tuple. So now we're ready for our player to go ahead and throw the fireball. So I'm going to do it in the player control method with the controller, because this video is really just checking the controller. I wanted to include this, but as I was sitting here thinking about it and getting started trying ideas, I think I'll have to remodel this. The keyboard, this part in the last video was just to show how to put together a fallback. So I think the rest of this game I'm going to put on the controller. Putting together a fallback would be the same thing, just doing an event key, doing a add to the LF event key list for whatever other keys would be needed. But I think this would cause a problem. Probably should have done it to match this and have more things down here. So like if the controller is not plugged up, call player control, and then else call this method, and the keys probably should have just built a list or something. But that's the point of this is to test the controller, so I'm going to put it up here in the controller method. So just like our player, we'll need some global variables to move the fireball at. So I'll go ahead and set those up. Fireball x equals 0. 0 seems like a good place to start them. Fireball y equals 0. And that's inconsistent. I think I've been using a lowercase b everywhere. So give it some sort of starting point, and then a boolean to tell whether it's on the screen or not. I thought for a couple seconds, don't see anything meaningful, so I'm just going to call it isFireball. And if it's false, that means there's not one on the screen. If it's true, there is one on the screen. And then we can use that to determine if we need another one. So those are all going to be global variables, so I'll add them to the player control list here. So global fireball x, fireball y, and isFireball. And then after the player moves, we can just check and see if it's time to throw a fireball. So if not isFireball, so if this variable is false, which means there's not one on the screen, and controller.get I'll come back and check all of the buttons with this. That doesn't necessarily need to be on the video because they would be exactly the same, equals 1. So if isFireball is false and the A button is pressed, well, then we want to create a fireball. So we'll create one at the same spot the player is. Player x, fireball y equals player y, and then call that fireball method with those coordinates. Fireball x, fireball y, and now there will be one on the screen. So we'll say isFireball equal to true. And I guess the else for that is once it's created, we want it flowing rapidly across the screen. So if the isFireball is true, which means there is one showing, we'll just move it rapidly to the x. So fireball x increments by 12 each time. And I have a feeling I'm going to add in some y stuff. I might add in some y stuff, probably not on the videos, but I'll go ahead and do a 0 on the y there. That way I remember where to put that when I come back to adjust that. But for us here, that's not going to do anything. And so we'll move it very quickly towards the right, draw it again, fireball x, fireball y, and whenever it passes our window, we want to go ahead and get rid of it, or stop worrying about it. So our screen is 768 wide, so I'll go a little bit past that. So like if fireball x passes 777, a little bit past the screen, then we can go ahead and reset this to false. This fireball equals false. So save this and give this a run. And I'm just going to skip doing that, repeating it for keys, because this one is just really about testing the controller. I just wanted to include the logic of the key thing there, because that one's, the fallback's kind of important. So I'll come over here, give it a run, and see if I made any typos while I was talking. Oh, I sure did. Oh, that is supposed to be Fireball Sprite in our method. Yeah, it's not a recursive method. It should be calling Fireball Sprite. And this video is getting long, so I'm going to pause the video. I know I've talked about the logic correctly, but I probably made some typos, so I'm going to pause the video until this runs. Well, apparently there was only one typo because it ran the very next time. And the very first time, there was a fireball start up here at 0, 0 and move its way across. So I might have to make an adjustment there. I'm thinking whenever the fireball crosses the screen, it might come back and just keep moving from the other side. Let's check that. So I push the A button. Nope. Well, it didn't loop back around, so it's like wherever I'm at, the fireball is going to move. So that works, and it's not coming back from the other side of the screen. So maybe a good default starting position would be over here past that 777. I don't know why it was still drawing it there, but well, it seems to work there. So now I can add another character in and go over collisions real quick to get that test going. And between the videos, I'll do this, reassign all the other buttons to the fireball to test that. Oh, and might as well test this one. It should only be one at a time. Yep, so I was continually hitting the button and I couldn't till it passed the screen. So I guess I need to put another character together and then go over collisions in the next video, and that'll pretty much sum this up. Well, maybe a score is what, keep a score once there's something, a collision that can happen. But that'll be for the next video. So this got the fireball moving, and it should follow similar logic to this to get that on a keyboard press fallback. But as I was thinking about it, I think what I did to show the keyboard press fallback is going to need remodeled somehow in order to do it the same way as this. But this one is just about the controller, not about PyGame, just quick examples in PyGame. So I'm just going to do the controller part for the rest of it, and just wanted to show that logic. Yeah, so I'll get ready for the next video. Looks like it's about 13 minutes, so that's probably good for this one. And now our player moves around and throws a fireball. So I think we'll need another image in order to actually do something with that fireball.